Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, you genuinely cannot cope with body changes? Maybe it's pulling on a pair of jeans that feel too tight. Maybe it's stepping on the scale and seeing the number go up. Maybe it's catching a photo of yourself and noticing how your body has changed and feeling like the floor is dropping out beneath you. Maybe you've been doing such hard work on healing your relationship with food and you've been eating more freely, but when your body starts to change, you feel like you're in free fall. While it's completely normal to notice body changes and have a reaction to them, if your reaction feels overwhelming, if it ruins your mood for the rest of the day, if it stops you from enjoying events where photos are involved, or if it takes you away mentally from the people that you're with, from being able to focus and really absorb the words that are coming out of your partner's mouth on a dinner date, or from being able to enjoy time being spent with your friends, laughing and connecting because you're still thinking about that bad photo that was taken, then that's often a sign that your identity and self-worth are still tied to being in a thin body. There's a name for this that you've probably heard me talk about before, which is called the skinny identity. It's the part of you that doesn't just want a smaller body or prefer to be in a smaller body. It's when you feel like you need it to feel safe, confident, desirable, or worthy. So when your body changes, it doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels like you're losing who you are, losing control, losing protection. In today's episode, I am joined by former client and community member, Ashley. Ashley shares exactly what it looked like for her to detach from her skinny identity by building a sense of self that wasn't dependent on how her body looked. You'll hear how she went from completely crashing out over a single photo of her body to confidently walking a runway at a work fashion show event. Not because she changed her body, went back to her leaner body, but because her self-worth was no longer tied to it. Hi, and welcome back to Wake Up with Natalie Rose, the channel that helps you think less about food and your body and more about truly living. In this episode, Ashley's going to walk you through all of the major mindset shifts and, more importantly, the actions that she took to let her skinny identity go for good so that she could step into her most authentic, secure, and self-accepting version of herself. And if you've ever wondered, is full recovery actually real? Or how do I feel okay about myself if I don't go back to my leanest weight? Then this episode is for you. Make sure you listen all the way through because Ashley's story answers all of these questions and more in a way that the typical recovery advice you hear never could.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
It's so nice to see you.
It's so nice to see you too. I know it reminds me of the old times on the coaching calls. I'm like, hi.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to chat with you and sort of dive into your story and just hear about, more importantly, like where you are now and how things are going. Do you want to share a little bit about what led to you finding the community and us working together?
Absolutely. So I think for a lot of my life, and part of what led me to joining the community is the fact that I think I lived a lot of my life, from teens and onward, really living by these fearful, negative core beliefs about myself that I think really started early in childhood for me. I was a very active and energetic kid. And, that led to a lot of things, but I felt like I was pretty disconnected from my emotions. And early in childhood, I was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD and trichotillomania as a part of that, which is a disorder where you pull out your hair compulsively. And there's a term for it. It's a body-based regulatory behavior. And so it was a way as a kid that I really learned how to deal with anxiety and stress, but of course, not necessarily healthful. And so my family quickly, brought me in to see somebody. I got on medication for ADHD to help with that. And it really changed me as a little kid. My energy levels depleted. I lost my appetite. And I think that really led into a new journey with my body because as I got off the medication, throughout my time in recovery and in the community, I learned about, energy states of the body. And clearly my body was in a state of very low energy and needing to recover. That led to some discomfort in my body in my tween years, I would say, which then pushed me to join a sport in track and field in 8th grade. And things really started to change for me. I found a way to change my body, and it felt like a big solve because finally I felt like I had a community and I had friends, and it was hard for me not to correlate the change in my body and these new gained friendships, which wasn't necessarily the reason why people liked me or I was getting new friendships. It was because I was being more social, but I really correlated those two things. And that was really the birth of this belief that I had, that I needed to control my body in order for people to like me. And if I don't control my body, I could be not attractive, and that would mean I wouldn't have any friends and eventually a romantic partner, and I would be alone and I'd be very sad. So those are the types of things that really drove me. And so with that desperation, my behaviors escalated, dieting and exercising behaviors, to an eventual diagnosis of anorexia nervosa right before I started high school. And that really dictated a lot of my high school experience. Soon I had to go and travel 3 hours up north to the main city in my state in order to get the care I needed. It wasn't available where I lived. And so that put a stressor on school. I wasn't able to do sports or certain activities. And at the time, it felt like a big violation of my freedom and my ability to control my own life, because I wasn't able to do the things I really wanted to do. And I felt like at the time that I didn't have a problem that needed to be solved. I felt like this was my way to get what I needed in life. And so I definitely wasn't fully on board with recovery and just wanted to do enough to get by and didn't want to face what I believed to be negative repercussions of recovery. So I really skirted around it, did everything I could to not go inpatient, but still hold on to my beliefs, my behaviors, everything I could to protect myself, because I saw it as serving me at the time. That eventually escalated towards the end of my freshman year, where I realized I really do have to make a change or things will not change. And eventually, unfortunately, that meant, I had to change some of my behaviors, eat a little bit more. But when things are so high stakes because you're underweight, because you're so restricted, food means more than it should. And it has, in my mind at the time, it had to be absolutely perfect in order for it to be worth it, quote unquote, right? And it never would be. It never would be, because I wasn't at that mental place. So it eventually led to a pretty big argument right before having to go up to the doctor again before the end of my freshman year, which then led into an argument with my parents, and my parents deciding to get divorced and sharing that with us. So it was a very big emotional moment that at the time I couldn't help but feel like was all my fault because of my eating disorder. And I think this was good and bad in my journey. I think it was good in that I realized life was bigger. My emotions have an impact on people. My actions have an impact on people. And maybe it's not all about me and my body. And maybe there are other things that I want in life. I think the bad part about it is that I wasn't necessarily equipped to recover without enlisting help and being willing to really change my beliefs. And I don't think I was quite there yet. So I would say my behaviors really evolved to more of a binging, purging type behavior, and then back into restriction. So my family eventually came together again, which is really nice. But throughout, high school and college, I think I really battled that, whether it be, binging and purging, and then joining Weight Watchers and losing weight again, and then going back into that cycle after under eating. And so it was kind of perpetual throughout my high school and college years, till eventually it caused me some medical issues where I was having problems with digestion. I was having issues with my energy levels and being able to feel like myself fully. I thought a solve for that would be if it fits your macros in bodybuilding and weightlifting, which it really wasn't. But around that time, I started, going to therapy again on my own accord to heal. And it was great to talk through some of those issues around food in my body, but we never really got to the roots of the problem. And the next step on that course was to join an in-person community type group and tackle fear foods in front of a group. And that's when I said, no, thank you. I'm going to stop now, and I'm not going to come back. And I was really fearful. So, as I'm embarking into these other methods that I think are going to heal me, like bodybuilding and if it fits your macros, and learning about that, all the roots were still there. And that's where I think I started to see these eating disorder behaviors, negative self-core beliefs, and, low self-esteem, those sort of things start to impact other areas of my life, where I met somebody in that bodybuilding community who I could say I had a trauma bond with. It led to a very emotionally abusive and toxic relationship, where not only was I battling my own negative self-beliefs, but also taking on all of his and his ideas about what a healthy diet would look like, which, you know, by the standards of gentle nutrition and intuitive eating is not healthy. But, you know, throughout the several years I was with that person, I noticed anxiety start to creep up again and started embarking on therapy again. And that's where I started learning a little bit more about self-worth and self-love and respect and relationships and how to have a healthy relationship. And eventually I came to the conclusion and realization that this relationship was another manifestation of my core beliefs and trying to prove myself that if I'm with somebody who's fit and healthy, then I'm good enough, right? Wow, I've made it. He validates my existence. And, you know, I realized that that wasn't true, but I didn't necessarily know how to get out of it healthfully. So I jumped from that relationship to another relationship with somebody I met at the gym. And I thought, oh, because this isn't the same toxic relationship, this is going to be a lot better. This is going to be my person. But in reality, those beliefs were still there. You know, this person was also athletic and also fit. And although he didn't have necessarily the same toxic beliefs that he imparted on me, I still had them. And I still felt like if I lose my body, I'm going to lose this relationship. And I lived in this constant state of fear. And I noticed some of those eating disorder behaviors related to food in my body start to creep up again more strongly, to where I started noticing fears of taking photos, fears of being seen. But I started being a little bit more open with it. And so my sister got me a book on intuitive eating. And as I started reading this book, it was as if all of my fears and all of these background thoughts that really guided me, you know, I'm not good enough if my body isn't a certain way, or, you know, deep down, I'm a disgusting person and I need to be hidden. Nobody can see the real me. It was almost as if they were illuminated on paper. And I realized that I didn't have trust with my body. I didn't have trust around food or my body's signals around food and eating. And I didn't trust myself to make the right decision. And I didn't trust life, that life would be okay if I just let things happen and let go of control. And so even though I was really fearful of it, I decided, okay, let me try intuitive eating and see how it goes. And at that time, I was on my own. I wasn't in therapy at the time. So it was really tricky. And I really wanted to embark on this, but not necessarily see my body change. And I would research, you know, how can I do this without my body changing? So I was about 1 foot in, 1 foot up, 1 foot out. As that relationship at the time ended, I joined therapy again to work on my relationship skills, communication, conflict management, all these things I thought I had problems with. But that really illuminated to me that there were much deeper issues at play and deeper issues that impacted my eating disorder. So it helped me unpack my childhood, but my therapist at the time recommended I join a community like the CommunEATy and see a dietitian to really get some more insights on intuitive eating. So I did that, saw some blind spots there, worked on my diet, but I was still a little bit too afraid to join a community. But as I was really starting to change my eating disorder, my eating behaviors, of course, I started to see body changes too. And that's where the true mental discomfort started to come. And I felt like I was in Freefall. I had several girls' trips that summer, and we would, of course, take pictures because we're making memories together. And I would see these photos and I would feel overwhelmed with emotion, just completely paralyzed, unable to speak. And my friend, you know, we'd take a photo, my friends would be back to whatever we're doing, chit-chatting, super excited. And I would feel so overwhelmed. When can I get a break? And I would, you know, lie in bed being so discomforted by all of that. And it was around that time that I saw your content, Natalie, on Instagram. So thankfully my phone was listening to me or something, but it led me to you. And I was really grateful for that. I think one of the first posts I saw was about the skinny identity. And it really spoke to me because I was in this point of changing my behaviors, changing my beliefs, but still holding on to these other core beliefs. And that's really what led me to joining the community, was knowing I need to rewrite my identity. I think I do need support. I think I can be strong enough, or at least handle some of the emotions that might come about with sharing my story and connecting with people who are in a similar area of life. So that's really what brought me to joining the community, was finally committing to changing those beliefs and starting something new.
Wow. Oh, your story it made me so emotional. It's like so many ups and downs that I can personally relate to. Just the way that our relationship with ourself translates into our relationship with food, relationships with others, relationship with our body. Like it's all intertwined. And like you said, it's because of those core beliefs that really filter into everything. And it wasn't until you really recognized that it was about the core beliefs, like that if your core beliefs didn't change, you would continue to feel this pressure to stay thin. And at that time, you were eating intuitively. And so was it, you were feeling more comfortable in your relationship with food and you knew that going back wasn't an option. And at the same time, you're having this like roller coaster of emotions. Like you said, it felt like a free fall that you were like, okay, I need to dig deeper into the core beliefs under my body image.
Absolutely. I think as I had explored intuitive eating, I started becoming more comfortable trying new foods. Not totally there. I definitely needed help within the community to tackle some of those fear foods and work through the emotions around them. But I knew it wasn't something I could go back to because I felt like in learning about intuitive eating, the research was just so clear. And I think I had, this greater belief, whether someone is spiritual or religious or science-based in their core beliefs. I mean, the human body is designed to give us signals. And I didn't doubt that, if I needed sleep, I needed to sleep. Or if I had to use the restroom, I had to use the restroom. So why do I doubt that if I'm hungry, I don't need to eat? That's not true. And so I felt like that was inescapable, but I didn't know how to deal with the blowback of my body changing and what I felt like that meant about me, if that makes sense.
Exactly. That's exactly what I built the community around, because that's what I felt in my journey as well. I was like, okay, I don't want to change my eating behaviors. Like I'm eating in a way that aligns with the life I want to live. Like I want to eat freely. I love food, always have.
Yeah, of course.
And yet these intense emotions, like I don't know what to do with them. You came on when it was still in the early stages. It was still sort of transitioning from a membership into the group coaching community. What was your experience coming into the community after having had those experiences of like really, really being reluctant to join group and do group stuff? What was it like entering the community?
Yeah, I think right before I had joined, I had an experience with my now fiance that I think helped me be a little bit more open to sharing. But one night I remember we were going to dinner and my body was changing and I didn't know what to wear. And it was a nice dinner and I just didn't have a good time at all because I was so worried about, oh my gosh, my body's changing and now I have to eat this nice fancy meal. He's spending money on me and I don't even want to eat this because I know it's, I felt like cognitive dissonance between which goals I wanted to pursue. And I felt so overwhelmed when I'm trying to also talk and connect with this person. But it ultimately ended in, the end of the night, things being so awkward between us and me having to admit, this is on my mind. I'm so worried about my body. And I hate revealing that to you because it also makes me feel like a shallow person for caring about this so much. And so I'm sad that I even care about this. So it was really awkward. And, he met me though with so much acceptance and love, even though we had, not the greatest date together. And it had nothing to do with him, but he showed me that acceptance. And so it told me right before I joined, maybe it'll be okay if I open up. So when I first joined the community, I definitely was hesitant and a little bit afraid. But I felt clear about what my fears were and that I was afraid that other people would judge me, that, my experience isn't enough to dictate my joining this community, if that makes sense. Like, oh, well, you're not that bad. You're not that sick. You're not that XYZ. But, the content resonated with me so much that I just had to overcome that. My will to heal was stronger this time. So I was a little bit fearful still, but I also felt really excited. I think what I really loved about the community was the structure of it. I love the community part itself, but I actually really liked I guess you could call it coursework. That's a part of it. I liked having the lesson in the video and being able to digest the information and then really work through different questions on my own and then come to the group coaching calls with issues. So I think I was really excited about that format too. And one thing I really liked about it was seeing other people open up in previous coaching calls. So I quickly went back and looked at old lessons and old group coaching calls when I first joined, and hearing other people share about their story, I know there were some girls specifically in the community that I related to so deeply, and I wanted to talk to them about it. And that opened me up and helped me feel more safe to then sharing more on my own in the group coaching calls as well.
I love that. So seeing other people sharing what you had been struggling with just maybe helped you feel less alone in that and sort of have that fear of judgment melt away a little bit.
Yeah. And I realized, when they were speaking about their experience, the fears that I had in my head, the judgments that I thought would come from other people did not come up in my head at all about them. I felt nothing but admiration, love, even though I didn't know them, because I felt so connected to their journey from my own experience. So I thought, this doesn't seem like a place where we're here to judge other people. Everybody that's here wants to be here, has the same goal, and we all need support and uplifting. And that's really what it was. I continued to see that, through the early stages, and felt more and more safe to share and open up and really dive in.
That's amazing. That's so nice to hear. And of course, you were such a supportive person for them as well. You really always showed kindness and were there to support when others, were asking for help or were expressing something difficult. And I really appreciated that too. Was there anything else about the community that you weren't sure of, or that surprised you, or that you enjoyed?
Yes, I think there were a lot of big moments throughout that time too that helped me. As far as things I was afraid of, I think, right off the bat in phase one of the community, one of the things you need to do is tackle your fear foods in order to get through it. And sure, I could have not done it and said that I did. But I think I was at a point in my life where I didn't want to do that anymore. Like, I knew I needed to actually do the work to get through it. And so that definitely gave me hesitation, because I think it's not only a fearful thing to do because you have very legitimate fears around doing that, but it's also coming to grips with the fact that this identity, the skinny identity, if you will, is needing to dissolve. So that definitely gave me hesitation, because I didn't know who I was going to be at the end of this, if that made sense. And so that was a little scary. I think something else that really scared me throughout the process was having to actually face my emotions and handle them in a different way. Throughout my time in the community, I had gotten engaged to my now fiance, and, that came with a surprise photo shoot the day of. And, that was really scary for me, because I joined the community in part because I was struggling with photos, and that was something I had talked about. And I felt like I was at this point where I was, gaining weight and becoming more comfortable in my body and working on food fears and being more comfortable there. And so in my mind, maybe my previous self would have thought this could not have come at a worse time. But I actually think it happened at the best time, because it was very hard for me emotionally to go back and initially see just a little preview of those photos. And I think you probably remember I reached out to you in panic at the time. I was freaking out emotionally. Like, never have I felt such a big wave of emotion before, because I think it was all coming to me at once. It was just packaged in this little huge life event, if you will. And so dealing with that was tough. And I remember, I posted in the community, and it was a few days until we have a group coaching call. So I had to sit with those emotions for a few days. And I remember you gave me a few prompts to work on, but the biggest challenge was sit in it. I remember feeling so sad afterward, dealing with, just the grief of my body changing, and then additional shame on feeling bad about that when this should be a really happy experience. But afterward, a few days later, it showed me that, oh, actually, that's all it was. It was just an emotional feeling in my body of sadness. And a few days later, I got to talk to the community about it. I talked to, my sister about it. I even talked to my fiance about it, and it was okay. And then we got the pictures back, and sure, I didn't like every single one of them. but there were some that I really loved, and that's fine. That's good. I'm happy to have those. And I got through it, and then it made every other little experience less daunting. And so it was great to have the coursework to work through my emotions during that time, and then have the community to talk to about it afterward. And that actually led to an offshoot of that. I went to Japan a few months later with my fiance, where we took our actual photo shoot, and it worked really well because we had a community member who was living in Japan at the time that I got to reach out to. And it worked out perfectly to where the time that I could meet up with her was right after that photo shoot. And so as I was preparing for that and thinking about the mindset I wanted to be in, I remember, okay, I'm going to talk to her right after. She knows what I went through. And so even if this is really uncomfortable, I know I can share with her in person, and she's going to be able to understand and support me. And so that was really great too. So that was definitely also a highlight of my time in the community, was putting all of the emotional regulation techniques together to build that relationship with her and overcome some of these big fears I had for life events, if that makes sense.
Totally. That was so cool. Like when I heard that you guys were meeting up, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like coming from online to in real life and around a big, big moment, like a huge challenge in your healing journey. It's so meaningful that way. Like the fact that you guys could meet up right after that. That was so exciting.
It really was. And she's amazing. It was so great to meet her in person and have that as, a friendship that's going to extend beyond the community now too, and be able to support each other when life, continues as it does. Because even though, we've both made so much progress, things crop up, and you're going to be tested, and you have to remind yourself of these things. And sometimes you need to rely on support. So it's great to have all these relationships that can persist beyond even the set amount of time that, one could be in the community.
Definitely. Yeah. Like healing is like this,
Yes.
It's not just like this. There's going to be moments that challenge you, and it's about how you respond to those challenges. Like you just shared, you were forced to just sit with the emotions instead of trying to fix them or do something to make them go away or to get back in control. And you just had to face them to recognize that you didn't need to be afraid of them anymore.
Yes. Yeah. It was huge.
And that you could rely on other people for support as well as yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge moment just in my life. Now, if that makes sense, because I really feel like that was a big turning point for me, because it allowed me to fully dive in and be a little bit more curious about my emotions. Like, oh, well, what other emotions could I feel when things come up? What am I going to do? What is it going to mean? What choice am I going to make? So even though it was really hard, it made me feel really proud afterward, and it made me feel prepared for future events, because, that I was getting engaged. Like soon I'm going to get married, and there's going to be a ton of photos and a ton of people looking at you, and how are you going to deal with that? And so I think it really opened that up. And on that note too, I mean, something that I felt was really, really helpful in the community. Like I think two things really stuck out to me. One would be rewriting those core beliefs, like I talked about at the beginning, like that being controlling my life, like having the opportunity to rewrite those and check the facts on them, which is a tool we use in the community, was really helpful. But also I remember we had a radical acceptance workshop, and that really hit me in a different way, because I think it was relatively soon after that. And it helped me realize all of the things that I couldn't control and I needed to just accept, because there really is no other route. And it gave me so much peace to learn the tool of radical acceptance as well.
Yes, I remember that really. You internalized that. You mentioned that was something you really internalized after that workshop. And radical acceptance can be so tricky, especially like from an outsider looking into this work. You kind of see it as like, okay, just accept your body. And you're like, whoa, I can't do that. Like, what do you mean? But it's really so much more than that. It's like you said, it's accepting what you can and can't control and feeling liberated by that, instead of repeating this same cycle and the same war with yourself and with reality.
Right. 100%. And I think the big outcome for me and that the big realization I had is that I have no control over other people's perceptions of me, no matter how hard I try. And whether that be by controlling my body or what I say or what I do, I can do everything that I believe would be right and getting them to think whatever about me that I want them to think. And it still wouldn't work. And I think that was huge for me because I think it showcased, all of the behaviors I had prior to joining the community and how they were driving that need for acceptance. Control your food so you can be small, so you can be accepted. Well, I could eat quote unquote perfectly and have the quote unquote perfect body and people still wouldn't accept me. And so I just have to give that up. And I think, throughout the season, I'm about 5 weeks out from my wedding now. And I know during that workshop, something that was really big on my mind was, what are people going to think about me as I'm walking down the aisle? Like, are they going to think, oh, she really doesn't care about her body anymore, and that means she has no discipline, and that means she's a bad person? Like, no, that's not true, right? But like, even if I did have, control everything up till that point, people can think whatever they want about me. I can't control that. And so I think letting that go was huge, and it opened me up to actually embodying true parts of myself that I hadn't before, like leaning into different activities that I enjoy, and even like media I enjoy consuming, and just really owning that a little bit more, because not owning it didn't bring me happiness and it didn't necessarily guarantee acceptance from others. And so I need to just really be myself so that I can connect with people who I have all these common interests with and have my full personality back online. That was huge too.
Yeah, I love that. I heard something recently that it's like we have two paths. If we really wanted to, we could lead with control. Like we could control everything about ourselves and potentially, change other people's opinions of us in some way, but it leaves us with fear. Like there's no peace at the end of that, because then you're just constantly changing yourself for this end result that you're wanting. Or we can lead with love and trust and achieve a similar result, like acceptance from others. And it actually brings us to peace. It sounds like you really chose that second route. Like you were like, let me lean into who I am and lean into the people who connect with that, and let myself be accepted and loved by my partner and my friends, and experience that fully because I'm showing up as I am authentically, and let go of that battle, like that control, that tight control that keeps me afraid that deep down they won't really love me unless I'm this way.
Yeah. And I felt like when choosing that control-based path, it's weird because you're manipulating your behaviors to be accepted, but it almost feels like what's being accepted is something that has no real substance to it, if that makes sense, because it almost feels like your true personality, it isn't there, right? And so it's really hollow and very surface level. Whereas I think the other path, you are fully embodying who you truly are, what your interests are, what your goals and values are, and your beliefs. And that just feels so much better to get that acceptance on the real thing. So I totally love that idea too, of the two paths, and coming back to that, what is this decision based off of? Am I making this decision out of fear that if I don't do or do X, Y, Z, I'm going to get X outcome? Or is it out of love? I want this for myself, or I want this for this life, or whatever it might be. So I love that idea. It's great.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So get me up to speed on where you are now. How have things been in the past few months since I've seen you?
It's been great. I would say, I already highlighted that I'm getting very close to my wedding. So there's been a lot of that happening. So I had my bachelorette party 2 weeks ago, and that was so much fun, and such a fun way to reflect too on the weekend was looking back at all the pictures that we took. We took so many pictures, so many photos with all my best friends in the world. And I think back to, when I first joined the community and how I might have felt, which would have been, ruminating on the photos and studying them, has my body changed? Will people notice X, Y, Z? And instead I look at the photos and I think about, oh my gosh, look how much fun we had. Look at the joy that's really illuminated on our faces. And, there are some photos in that group where I don't necessarily love them. The angle's not the best. But beyond having this moment of just thinking, I don't really like that photo. I don't like my body in that photo. Maybe I shouldn't have worn that outfit. I think about that a little bit, but there's no high stakes emotions involved. And we can quickly move on and be like, well, you know what? I like all these other photos, so it's okay. So that's really nice. And on that same note, I think I had told you about this too, but since leaving the community or graduating from it, whichever term, right? A few months before doing that, I started pursuing teaching dance classes again. So I teach a Zumba type dance class, which is something that I really enjoy doing. But doing that has been a really big part of my life too. And really, I think, opened up my personality and my confidence because it's helped me get in front of people and make mistakes and move on and really lean into something that I love. So that's been a really great part of that. And then with that, about a little over a month ago, the gym that I work at, we did a fashion show and they asked all the fitness instructors to be in the fashion show. And we did dance at the end. So since I'm a dance instructor, they were, very much so trying to get the dance instructors to be involved so we can do the little dance at the end. And I felt like, okay, this is a little bit scary. I have to walk wearing an outfit down in a little red carpet strip, and people are all going to be looking at me and probably judging me. But this is great practice for going into my wedding and for becoming comfortable with knowing that I can't control people's perceptions of me. I can just have fun. So that was a really great moment because I really just tried to lean into the music that was on, owning it, liking the little outfit that I was in, and I got through it. I walked down the aisle and I came back and I was like, wow, that was so fast. Okay. I didn't have anything to be nervous about. So it was just further getting into that. So things have been pretty good since I've joined the community. Or joined the community, yes. And then of course, since afterward too, I feel like there have definitely been moments of challenge and moments where I've had to really come back to my beliefs, my core beliefs now about how I want to live my life and my core values. But I feel like that's been very grounding for me. And it's been a fun process to plan for this wedding and not really have to worry about, I have to make sure I follow this diet plan and this workout plan. I'm not really concerned about that, which is not where I thought I would be at any point in my life. So that's nice. It's nice to just focus on, my fiance and all the decorations and that sort of thing. So that's been good. And, when life has its challenges, I feel like I'm able to go back towards my values and the knowledge that I have from the community too. For example, I actually hurt my back last week. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I know, right after my bachelorette party. I think, I was a little bit stressed by that and probably doing a little bit too much, and, the body keeps up. So I hurt my back a little bit and I haven't been able to do much movement at all. And I think a past version of me being so close to this big event might have felt like, oh no, what am I going to do? I have to try to do things anyway, try to sneak it in, if that makes sense. And now, I have respect for my body and I want to be feeling good and healthy. And so I know I have to listen to it and rest. And so that's been different than what it would have been prior to community. And I don't feel anxious about it. I just feel more like a protector of my body and a protector of my mind and everything that comes into that. So things have been really good with the community, and it's been nice to just enjoy my life. And I feel like I'm continuing to come into my personality and show that a little bit more. And it's been just to go back to this idea of, doing things out of fear or doing things out of love wholeheartedly and getting acceptance. I think that's something that I've seen manifest since, near the end of my time in the community, where I started pursuing dance lessons again. I feel more confident doing things like karaoke with my friends, even if I'm imperfect. It doesn't matter. I'm just more open with that. And I feel like some of my friends have been surprised, if that makes sense. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. And part of me is like, oh, this is who I've always been. I think before I was just afraid of being judged. And now I realize that you can judge me no matter what, like, and I can't control it. And so I'm just going to do what I feel is right and have fun. And that's been honestly really rewarding.
I love that. Was the karaoke on your bachelorette trip or just a weekend?
Karaoke has been like more regular thing, I think, in my life. Just now that I'm doing things that I enjoy more, because before I would be a little bit afraid of something like that. But now I'm like, oh, nobody's expecting me to be a professional singer. I'm not, so it's okay. But yes, I did do it on my bachelorette as well. And that was the highlight. And it was so much fun. Like, it was a great time. And so, yes, both.
That is so much fun. I love that. It seems like you just aren't afraid of the judgment anymore. You're not triggered by it because you really, like you said, you rewrote those core beliefs that other people's judgment doesn't determine who you are.
Yeah. And I think, I realized I can't control other people's beliefs and their judgments, and that the only one I really have to face is my own. And there actually might be times where I don't agree with whatever I do, right? And I think there was a time in the community during a coaching call where we were talking about hunger and fullness cues. And I think I had mentioned something about going out to eat with my friends and on a girls' trip and really enjoying my food and wanting to keep eating, but feeling full. And I feel like I remember us talking about that being a choice that you can then own, oh, well, maybe you'll eat a little bit more and maybe you'll feel slightly uncomfortable, but I'm okay with that, And in hindsight, maybe if we felt too uncomfortable, we can make a decision to be a little closer to those hunger and fullness cues, right? Or vice versa. So I feel like that was also really impactful to me, is understanding that I can own my choices and it's okay if I make a mistake. And it just means I can change things up next time. And that's a normal thing to feel. Everybody feels that way. And a lot of people feel uncomfortable putting themselves on display, whether it be, singing karaoke or taking a photo, whatever it might be. And that's normal to not like how, to not be in love with every single little moment. But it doesn't have to paralyze you. And so that was really empowering to learn.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Because I think sometimes when we're on the other side of it and we're looking at this healing process, like, what is it even supposed to be? And sometimes we think we need to be fully comfortable in order to be doing things right. Or like healing means liking your body all the time. Or if you don't like it, that means you're doing something wrong or that it's not working for you. And so I'm glad that you really brought in that really realistic truth, which is that we can't like something all the time. Like, we don't even like the people we love 100% of the time. Right. Like, sometimes they can upset us, and it doesn't mean that we stop loving them or that we're going anywhere or that we're not going to respect them. It's just the same with our bodies. Like, whether it's a bad angle in a photo or you eat something that disagrees with you. My husband made mac and cheese the other night, and I was so happy to eat it. And I did, but it gave me a stomach ache. And then I ate it the next night. I was like, maybe you won't this time. And it gave me another stomach ache. And then I was like, okay, well, it was really delicious and I enjoyed it. Probably not going to have it tonight because I'm, it's obviously not agreeing with me. Like, I'm just making that decision, but it's nothing more than that. I wasn't sitting there like, oh my God, what does this mean? I can never eat this food again, or I'm gaining weight. All those like fearful thoughts that come out when you're triggered by something like that. When you're on the other side of it, you're seeing it as just what it is. Like, it's not the most flattering photo, or the food didn't agree with me, or I overate last night and that's it. There's not that visceral emotional trigger like you mentioned. I can totally.
Yeah. It's almost like looking back to the photo that I thought about, or like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have worn that outfit. I didn't like that. That maybe it wasn't the most flattering angle, whatever. Instead of thinking I'm the problem, I kind of thought, it's actually so annoying that like there's so much pressure to have so many perfect white outfits for every little event when you're going to get married. And same thing. It's like, why is there so much pressure that we have to make, every food has to be perfect for us and it has to be good or it means something more? Like it doesn't. And I think like the thing about recovery is even in those tough moments, every time you choose not to go back to those behaviors or give into those thoughts, or, despite having them, that's making the decision to be recovered and to make the right choice, if that makes sense. It's not the absence of those negative thoughts, it's how you respond to them. And that's still doing it, and that's still a win in my book, is even identifying it and being able to move on and make a different choice. And that thought's not true. I don't have to believe that. I can keep moving on.
Definitely. And that's what makes it less triggering over time, because every time you do give into those thoughts, it makes them stronger and more believable. So all the times that you don't, and you, like you said, just choose actions that align with your values, lean into your values, lean into your safe relationships and support and comfort, that strengthens that inner compass, like that inner self-worth and the core beliefs you're developing that build that safety, so that it's, whatever was fearful becomes less triggering or less scary, like the fear of judgment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that was one of the great things in the community, were several of the lessons that you couldn't do in a day, in a week. Like you had to spend a couple weeks working on, for example, like fighting body checking and realizing, okay, what's driving this body checking behavior? Why do I need to check my body to make sure I'm okay? Why am I feeling not okay? And like being able to identify those triggers and work through them over and over and over again for a consistent period of time, to realize like, okay, there are other ways that I can support this emotion that's coming up and replace it with other beliefs and other behaviors. The consistency, I think, is huge. So definitely agree on that.
And I mean, I really want to commend the commitment that you had to really not just diving into the work, but staying with it. Like you really, like you said, some of the things you had to practice for weeks, you had to continue doing it. You couldn't just kind of do it once and try and then hope that it was like healed. I know there were tough moments for you. What helped you stay committed and ultimately get to the other side of everything?
I think there were a few things that helped me to stay committed. I think going back to my why was huge for me. And ultimately, my own struggles with this are not the first in my family. I know my mom struggled as well. And I think I know she did her best for things to be better for me. And I want to continue to pass that down, not only to my own family, but to other women and men and, in between that I meet in my life. I hope to have a positive impact on that. And so I really was committed to that and really changing my beliefs. So that helped. And then I think having the community itself was helpful, because there were times where we shared wins, but there were a lot of times where we shared moments of struggle and we're able to support each other too. So I think having that support network helped me to be reminded of that why, and be reminded of some of the facts, that you learned early on in the community, that, diets don't work. Like, yes, I could abandon all of this and go back in the other direction. But at this point in my life, I joined the community when I was 29. I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa when I was 14. So over 50% of my life going back and forth. So I knew, sure, I could run away, but I'm just going to be here again. So I don't want to do that again. We're here. Let's finish it out. And then I think having a really strong network in my, real life helped too. My fiance was a wonderful supporter of me, to where I could tell him anything and he would remind me of my goals. He just had a good way of always remembering. And my sister was really important. And then I had a group of friends that, we're normal friends too, but we also have a group that we call Goals and Gals, where we meet regularly and talk about our goals. And they all knew that this was a goal for me. And so being able to share that with them was helpful, because I had that accountability on that front too. I don't want to quit this time. Like, don't let me quit. So that I think was all really helpful. My why and my network, my support network.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, any words of encouragement for anyone who is experiencing doubt on this journey or who is really eager to heal as well and just kind of needs a few words of encouragement?
I think the biggest thing is that it is possible, because I think for so many years, I just didn't believe it was possible for me. And I think that's a really common feeling is, you think that you're individual and being unable to heal. But I think sometimes, I think there's a lot of recovery programs out there that don't necessarily get to the root of the issue. And I think that, once you get to the root, it is possible because you can rewrite those beliefs. And I think that is possible, but it takes time, it takes consistency and persistence because it is a process. So I think, I want to remind anybody that's in that place that it is possible, even if it feels impossible. And that the difference is making the choice when it is difficult, choosing not to believe your thoughts, choosing to check the facts and rewrite your thoughts, rewriting the beliefs, despite the presence of that negative thought. Taking the action is what matters. So I think that, that takes support, that takes time, that takes resilience, and maybe, getting knocked down and getting back up again. And that's what I mean by that. So I would definitely recommend, being persistent as part of it. Another thing I would share is I think the hardest part of recovery was having negative feelings in it and then judging myself for having those negative feelings. And if I could go back, I would tell myself, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel grief. It's okay to feel upset and angry, because once you actually feel those, you can get to the other side of it. And so I would, say it's already hard enough. You don't have to feel shame on top of that for yourself. And I think lastly, I think we're at this time just in society where it's tough. If you're online and on social media, having a thin body is something right now that is prized. I mean, we have things like GLP-1s that are easily accessible, and it's really hard not to be tempted to go to that sort of thing. But I think it's important to remember that there are people that don't feel like they have to have, this perfect body to be okay, and that you can have, what you believe to be your perfect body, and you could still feel insecure, unconfident, afraid, because it's not about that. It's really not about that. And so let's stop chasing the physical manifestation and start doing the work inside to see what's driving those fears. That's what's really going to lead you to healing.
Thank you for sharing that for anyone who needs to hear that, who knows that, but just needs to hear it, because we really don't hear that message as often as we should.
It's a hard time for that right now. And I know it can be hard if you're in a certain state of mind, for sure.
Well, thank you so much
for all of your help. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So glad that we got to chat today, and I got to see you full circle, and just taking me on that journey today was really special. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for always being a big support, and thank you for starting the community. Like, it changed my life. Like, really, I don't think I would be the same person today if I didn't join and build that community and put in the work with you. So thank you for the time you put in to build that, and, for all of your support along the way. It truly means so much to my life and my journey. So I couldn't thank you enough. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
Giving you a huge virtual hug.
Same to you. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye, Ashley.
Bye.
Take care. If you've listened this far and part of you is still thinking, oh, it's not that bad, I can still manage on my own, while another part of you knows that you've been trying and still aren't experiencing the peace and confidence and acceptance that you want, I want to speak directly to that inner conflict. Maybe you've done talk therapy or are in therapy. Maybe you've been through a formal eating disorder program once upon a time. Maybe you've listened to all the recovery podcasts, you follow all the body positivity accounts on social media, and you've tried to be really patient with yourself. Maybe you feel like you're doing the work by gathering all of that information and trying to think positive thoughts about your body, but you're still not feeling feeling at peace in your body. You hesitate when the camera comes out. You feel distracted during moments that matter, like dinner with your partner, time with your friends, because your body or how you feel in your body feels loud in your mind. Maybe you hold parts of yourself back because you're worried about how you'll be seen, how others will perceive you and potentially judge you. You don't have to wait till things get worse to deserve support, because as you heard Ashley share in this episode, nothing changes if your core beliefs don't change. And this is exactly the work that we do in the community. Real identity work, shifting core beliefs with community support that most treatment programs lack. Of course, we're not fixing your body. We're not forcing you to feel confident, but by learning how to regulate your emotions, rewrite negative core beliefs, tolerate uncertainty, and building a sense of self that doesn't collapse when your body changes or when life feels out of control, that's the work that we do in community. If Ashley's story resonated with you, if you recognize yourself in her fear, her spirals, or even her growth, I want you to know this: Ashley isn't the magic unicorn. She's not the one person that can achieve full recovery. She's someone who learned these skills in the right environment with the right kind of support, and you can too. Apply for CommunEATy today through the link in the show notes. You don't need to earn support by struggling harder. You don't need to go back to a smaller body to feel at home in yourself. You're allowed to choose a different way forward, one that is rooted in trust, self-acceptance, and a life that actually feels exciting to live. Thanks for listening to today's episode, and we'll talk to you next week.